If you watched my previous video about Barbault Basket, thank you. Over 2,000 of you did. And the most common question in the comments was the same one, asked 100 different ways. Okay, I understand what this is, but what do I actually do with it? That is exactly what this video answers. Because the peak of the basket, the most concentrated, most precise, most powerful 72 hours of this entire configuration arrives on July 19th. That is 4 days from now. The Barbault Basket occurs from July 19th to 21, ushering in a new era. Jupiter in Leo, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune retrograde in Aries, and Pluto retrograde in Aquarius will all be at the 4th degree, creating this rare basket shape in the sky. You have 4 days to prepare. Let's use them well. What exactly happens on July 19th, 21? Let me be precise about what is actually happening in the sky on these 3 days, because precision matters here. On July 20th at 15:54 London time, Jupiter reaches 4°26 Leo and locks into exact opposition with Pluto retrograde at 4°26 Aquarius. 0 degrees of orb. The two planets are perfectly balanced across the sky. That is the centerpiece of what astrologers are calling the Barbault Basket. But the opposition alone is not what people are talking about. What surrounds it is the precision instrument, the supporting aspects. Jupiter sextile Uranus at 0.15 dig, Uranus trine Pluto at 0.15 dig, Neptune sextile Pluto at 0.07 dig, are all within 1/4 of a degree of exact. These are not loose configurations. And then, on July 23rd, Mercury stations direct at 16 degrees in Cancer. The retrograde lifts. Communication begins to move forward again. This is not a single moment. It is a cluster of interlocking exact aspects that builds, peaks, and resolves, all within the same week. The window opens July 19th. It peaks July 20th. It begins integrating July 21st through 23rd. And then, the full moon on July 29th hits in an unconventional vein, inspiring innovations and radical growth. The basket doesn't just peak and vanish. It hands off to the next wave. What this window is designed to support. Before I give you the practical steps, I want to be clear about something important. A major outer planet configuration is not an instruction manual. It is a shift in what is available. The basket doesn't do anything to you. It creates conditions, and you decide whether to consciously participate in those conditions or let them pass unnoticed. Barbault suggested these conditions specifically support questioning institutional authority, rebuilding what matters, moving away from structures that served power rather than people, and finding a more considered relationship with what information we trust and why. On the personal level, career and purpose are highlighted. Jupiter's involvement could open doors to new ventures, leadership roles, or innovative projects. In relationships, Neptune softens boundaries for deeper connections. And for spiritual growth, this is a beautiful time for intuitive development, shadow work, or aligning with your soul's mission. The basket is open. What we put in it is still up to us. So let's talk about what to put in it. What to actually do, July 15th to 21. Here is your practical guide for the next 4 days. And the 3 days of the peak itself. I'm going to break this down day by day. Today through July 18th, prepare the ground. The days before the peak are for clearing. Not for big actions, for removing what's in the way. The basket reads best as scaffolding. The sky offers structure and support. Humanity still has to do the building, and you cannot build on cluttered ground. Here is what clearing looks like practically. Write down, not in your head, actually write down, what you are ready to release. Not what you think you should release. What you genuinely feel is ready to go. A dynamic in a relationship. A belief about what's possible for you. A version of yourself that served you once but no longer fits. You don't need perfect answers. Let the questions open space and invite honest noticing. Also during these days, slow down on new commitments. Mercury is still retrograde until July 23rd. This is not the time to sign contracts, launch major projects, or make irreversible decisions. Use this time for internal preparation, not external action. July 19th, the opening. July 19th is when the Uranus-Pluto trine becomes exact for the first time since 1921. For the first time since 1922, expansive Uranus flows into an auspicious trine with magnetic Pluto, the first of two in 2026, with the other arriving on November 29th. This day is for intention, not grand ceremony. Clear, specific, honest intention. Ask yourself 3 questions and write your answers down. What am I building in the next 2 years? Not what I think I should want. What genuinely calls to me at the level of my soul? What old structure in my life, a relationship pattern, a financial habit, a belief about who I am I ready to let Pluto dismantle? And what idea? The one that keeps arriving unbidden? The one that feels too big or too different? Am I finally willing to take seriously? Between July 19th and 21, you will find opportunity, transformation, an escape from the real world and new freedom. But opportunity requires you to be awake to it. July 19th is the day to set your attention. July 20th, the peak. July 20th is the centerpiece. If the 20th is the confrontation, the 21st is the breakthrough. On this day, do less, not more. This is not a day for busy productivity. It is a day for receptivity. Here is what I recommend specifically for July 20th. Spend time in nature if you can. The basket involves 4 planets across fire and air signs: Leo, Aquarius, Gemini, Aries. Open air, open sky, open space. Let your nervous system relax into something larger than your individual concerns. Have the conversation you've been postponing. Around July 19-20, pay attention to conversations and insights about where your heart feels fully met and where you're ready for new agreements. If there is something true that needs to be said to someone, this is the window. The energy of this day supports honesty with unusual grace, and pay attention to what arrives unexpectedly. Uranus is in Gemini. Uranus in Gemini is the innovation layer, the unexpected solution, the idea that arrives from nowhere and changes everything. An idea, a conversation, a connection, an opportunity. Something may arrive on this day that doesn't look like what you expected. Write it down. Don't dismiss it. July 21-23, integration. July 21st through 23rd is for integration. The peak has passed. Now you work with what arrived. July 22nd, Neptune sextiles Pluto at 0.07 degrees orb, the most exact aspect of the cluster. The dissolution of old structures at a nearly imperceptible level. Things quietly not coming back. You may not feel dramatic shifts on these days. The most significant changes from the basket are often quiet. A decision that feels obvious now that felt impossible before. A relationship that suddenly resolves itself. A direction that becomes clear after months of fog. July 23rd. Mercury stations direct at 16 degree in Cancer. The retrograde ends. This is the green light for action. Whatever clarity arrived during the peak, this is when you can begin moving on it. Carefully, thoughtfully, but forward. What the next 2 years hold. Here is the bigger picture that puts all of this in context. This generational alignment launches a 2-year wave of transformation that could redefine society as we know it. Watch for another dramatic turning point around the second Pluto-Uranus trine on November 29th. And there's something else worth knowing. Astrologer S.J. Anderson identified a second basket configuration forming in June 2027, suggesting that the 2026 to 2027 period is not a single moment, but a 2-year gateway, with the first basket in July 2026 initiating the threshold, and the second in June 2027 deepening the transformation. What this means practically: what you begin, release, or choose during this July window is not a small decision. It is the seed of the next 2 years of your life. The basket is a beginning, not a conclusion. The most important question right now is not what will happen. It is what will I consciously choose to build from here. Everything I've described today, the preparation, the peak days, the integration, the 2-year arc, applies to everyone. But where exactly this lands in your life, which specific area is being most activated, which house of your chart is receiving the basket's energy most directly, depends entirely on your personal birth chart. The signs most directly activated by this configuration are Leo, Aquarius, Gemini, and Aries. If you know your rising sign, begin there. Then read your sun and moon. But even knowing your sign is just the beginning. The basket hits hardest if you have placements near 4 degrees of those signs, and only your full chart shows you that. Moon reading gives you a free, deeply personalized reading based on your exact birth date. Right now, before the peak, understanding your personal chart is not just interesting. It is genuinely strategic. It tells you where to focus your intentions on July 19th, where to listen most carefully on July 20th, and where to take action from July 23rd onward. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Free. 2 minutes. And given that the peak arrives in 4 days, there is no better moment than right now. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Free. 2 minutes. Your exact birth date, July 19th, is 4 days away. The most concentrated window of this historic configuration is arriving whether you're prepared for it or not. Be prepared for it. Get your reading. Know your chart. Walk into the most powerful days of the century with your eyes open.